Welcome aboard a special day because I'm joined by the Senate's Majority Leader, Senator John Thune of South Dakota. Senator, Merry Christmas to you. I hope you get out of town soon, back to South Dakota. I suspect it's warmer there.
Yeah, well, Merry Christmas, Hugh. It's probably not warmer there, but it's always better to be there than here, right?
Yeah, I would say so. Thank you for giving me some time today. I want to look back at 2025 and a little bit forward. And mostly good news, some ongoing battles, and then a couple of disagreements I want to talk to you about. Yeah. Let me begin with the best news. Since the reconciliation process came along in 1974, Republicans have successfully used it only 4 times, including this year. So congratulations on that for the wonks out there, including me. How difficult was that?
Very. The nice thing about reconciliation, Hugh, as you know, is you can do at 51 votes in the Senate would typically take 60. So it is an opportunity when you have unified control of the government like we do right now, House, Senate, and White House, to do really big consequential things. And we used it for that reason. We got a lot of really big consequential things done. But just getting 51, keeping Republicans united to even pass something with a simple majority was incredibly challenging, especially something as, it has as far-reaching and had as many moving parts as the bill that we passed last summer did. So, you want to make use of it in a way that creates policy that's good for a really long time. And most of the stuff that we did in there, especially on the tax side, we made permanent. So those.
Oh, thank God. The cliff would have killed us. But for the people who are trying to keep score at home, 2001, 2003, 2017, when it was Speaker Ryan and Leader McConnell, and then 2025. Do you think there will be another one, Leader?
Could be. I mean, I'm open to that, and some of our colleagues are interested in another reconciliation bill as well. We actually have a couple of vehicles available to us. The way the Democrats finished up, they didn't do a budget that last year, so we took their basically shell and legislative vehicle, their budget, and did it. So we actually have 2 that we could still do this next year if we wanted to. And if there's a reason to, if we come together behind some health care proposal that we think we want to make permanent and create more affordable health care, I could see that happening. But I think it's really important that the stuff that we did in this first one, which, again, if you look at we kind of categorize it as safe streets, more money in people's pockets, and new opportunities to get ahead for the American people. And on tax stuff, energy stuff, regulatory, the newborn accounts, school choice, child care things that the Democrats have been trying to do for years, that we were able to get done in this bill, but only on our terms. And so it was really, really a consequential piece of legislation. And we'll look for other opportunities if things come along in the tax space or in the healthcare space, and we want to, do some things that can make policy that will take us in a different direction, particularly on healthcare, to make it more affordable. Then yes, we're open to using it.
Well, I want to remind people what would have happened had you not. And reconciliation was very hard this year because the Leader Thune had to work with Speaker Johnson, and not only is it 51 votes in the Senate, I mean, it's a close-run thing. Everything in the House is. So you two may have the best working relationship in the years I've been doing this between the House and the Senate. Would you think that will stand up?
I do. Mike Johnson is terrific in what he does, and he's a character guy, and so I really enjoy working with him. He's got a really hard job, as you point out. I mean, talk about a narrow majority. He has to navigate there. We have a similar situation, but his is even more, I think, complicated, frankly. But so we meet every week. We're meeting later today. We talk regularly. I've talked to him on the phone yesterday, and so it's a really good working relationship, Hugh, and one that is conducive to getting things done. But I can't tell you how hard and challenging and complicated it is with those narrow majorities, just keeping people together, on what are some very complicated and challenging issues.
And President Trump's not a shrinking violet. He has opinions.
Well, there is that. Yeah.
He has opinions. Let me go to the second big deal. And again, this is for wonks. You used the nuclear option, and I applaud. That was a tough thing to decide to do, but you did it, and I'm glad you did it. Again, let's remind people what you had to do.
Right. Well, and frankly, That was really hard because, again, you had to get people who were in our conference. We had to do it with 51 votes. We did all with all Republicans, and honestly, we held everybody together, which I think was pretty remarkable. But we did a ton of education and informing, and you know, the idea around how the nominations process historically worked and is supposed to work, and the Democrats had virtually blown it up. I mean, they literally, President Trump's first president in history not to have a single one of his nominees approved by either voice vote or unanimous consent, which is typically, it's the expedited way of getting non-controversial nominees through the process. And the Dems were just forcing us to vote literally on every, you know, not just the top level people, the cabinet level, which we do, but sub-cabinet level and below. And it had to change. We couldn't continue on this pace. The president never would have gotten his people in place. So we came up with a rules change. You know, some people refer to it as a tactical nuke instead of a strategic nuke, but we did some things that created what frankly had been the practice for a long time in the Senate, and that is on these non-controversial noms, being able to move them quickly in an expedited way. So we're now stacking them. We're going to move a stack later today. There are 97 in this bunch.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well, you, however, have a disagreement with the president, and I am on your side on this, on preserving the legislative filibuster. Have you persuaded him yet that we really don't want to change that?
Yeah, well, good luck with persuading him, Hugh.
Yeah.
He has a strong view on it, and which I appreciate and I'm sympathetic to because of the obstacles the Democrats throw up against him. I mean, the way that they're playing this, the Trump derangement syndrome is epic and real. And these Democrats are blinded by their hatred of the president, and so they don't want to do anything in any way that works with us to achieve his objectives or his goals or his agenda. And so I understand the president's frustration, but I also know that at least historically, the filibuster and the as you know, since its inception, unlimited debate has been a feature of the United States Senate going back to 1789, and then now it takes a supermajority still to this day to do anything here, and I think that makes sense on legislation. It forces collaboration. It gives a voice to the minority, and I think it's protected Republicans and conservatives in this country through the years from a lot of really bad stuff that Democrats would have done if they could have done it at 51 votes. So it's I know it's controversial, but I think it's something that has protected Republicans more often than any benefit we might get from getting rid of it.
And it's a defensible line around the Supreme Court. And I tell everyone, if they ever blow up the filibuster and they move to expand the court and pack the court, we will have lost the rule of law. So the filibuster is like the first trench they have to get over to get to the court, and we can't have that happen. So pause right there, America. I'll be right back with more of John Thune in Hour 3. I talked to him right before the show, and there's a lot ahead. But I got to get a bunch of stuff done today. I'm dividing it up between Hour 1 and Hour 3. First, let me remind everyone out there, our Angel Tree program is still underway. We've got just a handful of days until Christmas. Please visit HughHewitt.com. Go right to the top and be as generous as you can be. The banner, you cannot miss it, is at the top of HughHewitt.com. Let me also remind you of AndrewandTodd.com. I talked to Andrew this morning. Andrew's been in my Bible study for 25 years, and we do it by Zoom now. I can't wait to see him in person in California when I get back there. But that's not why you should go with Andrew and Todd, or maybe it is. Andrew Del Rey and Todd Avakian are great Christian men. They've served thousands and thousands of my listeners, as well as me and the Fetching Mrs. Hewitt when we moved back here, Dwayne, many people in Salem. If you're buying a house, and interest rates aren't going to come down for a while, so get out there and buy the house. 888-888-1172, 888-888-1172, or maybe you need to refinance. Well, the guy you want to call is Andrew Del Rey or Todd Avakian. You can go to andrewandtodd.com. Remember, they're with Union Home Mortgage. They're the bank. They lend you the money. andrewandtodd.com, 888-888-1172. And I'm in the Relief Factor studio, and it's cold here, but I did get outside and got some miles in this morning because it's not ridiculous anymore. It's like in the 40s, which is fine. So I got to be prepared for maybe a couple of minor aches and pains tomorrow. So I'm taking my Relief Factor right now. I'll tell you one thing. I take my Relief Factor every day, no matter how far I go or don't go, because the purpose of it is to build up your anti-inflammatory system so that whether you exercise a lot or a little, you're just a weekend warrior or an everyday, no matter what the weather kind of person, Relief Factor will be there to get rid of the minor aches and pains that other people use over-the-counters for, that they use aspirin for. Don't do that. Try Relief Factor. 1-800, the number 4, and the word relief, a 3-week starter pack for $19.95. That's less than $1 a day. 1-800, the number 4, or the word relief, or visit their website. Find that starter pack at relieffactor.com. I had a unique opportunity today to get an opportunity to talk to my governor, Governor Glenn Youngkin of Virginia. I say my governor for another month. He's going to be my governor, and I no doubt he's going to run through the tape, but I wanted to get in line early for all the exit interviews. Governor, thank you for making time today. Good to see you, and Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, Hugh. Thank you for making time for me, and I got to tell you what an honor it is to not only be with you on your great radio show, but also to have a chance to reflect on what's happened over the last 4 years, because it's been just amazing.
Well, that is my first question here. What do you think are your greatest accomplishments and the state's greatest accomplishments? And I want to give you the runway because there's a lot that got done.
Well, thank you for asking the question. And Hugh, I think that the story of the last 4 years has been one of massive transformation. It's been one of competing and winning. It's been one of promises made and promises kept. And it's been a story of Virginia leading again. I was humbled the other day when I heard someone describe the last 4 years as the Great Virginia Renaissance. But you have to go back to where we started to really put it in perspective. Back in 2021, Virginia was struggling. It was stalled. And coming out of the pandemic, we'd had 25,000 small businesses shut, more people move away. We were 47th in the nation in job recovery. We had a 20-year higher murder rate. And by the way, Virginia was ranked top in the country in learning loss in 4th grade reading and math because the schools were all shut. I mean, that's what we walked into. And we went to work. And when Virginians hired me, I told them that I was going to go to work to transform things, to change things. And that's exactly what we've done. We had to fix business in Virginia and open it up. And Virginia's had just a remarkable run. We've had $156 billion of investment commitments from companies over the last 4 years. And Hugh, that's as much as the last 6 governors combined. It's led to record job growth. It's led to record revenue growth for the Commonwealth. And it's been that financial strength that's then allowed us to turn around and provide record tax relief, $9 billion of tax relief to Virginians beyond anything that's ever been seen in Virginia before. And that, I think, has really led to the biggest shift, which is more people moving to Virginia from the other 49 states than moving away for the first time in a decade. That's really the heart of our effort. But one of the things our record revenue allowed us to do was tackle, I think, some of the most challenging issues that Virginia had, which was education. And at the top of the list was getting parents back in front of their students and their children at the head of the table. I mean, listen, number 1 in the nation in learning loss in reading and math in 4th grade. I mean, it's just stunning where Virginia was, with parents being shoved out the door in their kids' lives. And on top of that, we'd seen the systematic degradation of expectations of excellence. So we went to work, and I have to say, the day I signed the bill to get the masks off of kids, to allow parents to take sexually explicit materials out of their child's curriculum, but on top of that, to totally transform the way that we accreditate our schools so that now we know whether they are actually teaching the children or not. The work we've done to get cell phones out of the classrooms with bell-to-bell cell phone-free education across the entire state. And finally, we've led the nation in reducing chronic absenteeism. All of that, Hugh, has really been part of reestablishing expectations of excellence. And guess what? We made the standardized tests harder, and the students did better. How about that?
Yep.
And finally, this past year, we were named the best state in America for teachers. So, education has been one of our big opportunities. And I think we've demonstrated that you can transform a broken educational system and for the benefit of students and parents.
Yeah, anecdotal evidence is evidence of anecdotes. Lawyers like to say that. But my anecdote is my 4 grandkids who are military kids began in Virginia, went to California, could not wait to get back to Virginia schools because of the turnaround here and the emphasis on quality. I think, I don't know it firsthand, but I also think you have left a mark on Virginia higher education, the state university system here. Am I right about that?
Yeah, we've gone to work in order to make it a system that's focused on merit and to try to match curriculum to job opportunities, and finally to bring the cost down, because it's
Yep.
so hard for families in Virginia to afford these universities. And it's really just been the bully pulpit of the governor's office. I have really pushed them. We kept tuition flat the first year, and it's been an average of only 2% increases the last 3 years, because there's plenty of money in the system. But I also have been so proud of our ability to match degree paths to the labor opportunities in Virginia. I mean, we've created hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of jobs, and we need people to take those jobs. But Hugh, the blending of these 2 points is really important. We've created pathways for students to go straight to work or go to college or join our military. And that has been one of our top priorities. There's not one size fits all. College isn't for everybody. And so now nearly 80% of our students graduate from high school with an industry recognized credential. So they can go straight to work, or they can go through one of our great JROTC programs and immediately enlist in the military, which, by the way, is such a backbone of the Commonwealth of Virginia. This
Yes.
idea that going to work or joining the military should be celebrated, I think, is one of the big achievements of the Commonwealth of Virginia. That's not to take away from our great universities, but I do believe that there's a pathway that's unique to every single Virginia kid, and we got to open it up and let them chase it.
You know, you mentioned bully pulpit, Governor. I want to be the first, I'm sure, among many who will also want to thank First Lady Youngkin for many things, but especially One Pill Can Kill campaign. I think she saved lives with that. I don't know where she came up with it, but it's been brilliant. I'll also bet she's going to look forward to January 18th when you get a little break, right?
Well, I have to say the First Lady has been extraordinary. To serve with your wife and to see her do such amazing work. I mean, Virginia has led the nation in reducing overdose deaths from fentanyl. And she's been at the forefront. She's been traveling around the state speaking with parents and students and coaches and pastors, making sure everybody understands the scourge of fentanyl. And then we've coupled that with a concentrated effort to interdict the drug trade. We have seized enough fentanyl to kill every Virginian 10 times over. We have tried to really attack the gang violence in Virginia, and our partnership with the federal government has been amazing through the Virginia Homeland Security Task Force. We have arrested thousands and thousands and thousands of violent criminals who are here illegally. We arrested the number 3 player in MS-13 living right here in Virginia. And so it's been this combination of the great work from my amazing wife, Suzanne, and law enforcement that has enabled us to bring down fentanyl overdoses in such an extraordinary way.
Well, Governor, I hope after you are done, you'll come back and we'll take some time to talk about the media. We'll kick Larry O'Connor around a little bit, but genuinely, honestly, thank you, because Virginia is a much better place to live 4 years after your governorship than when I first got here, and I appreciate that you didn't have to do this, and you did it. Neither did Mrs. Youngkin. So on my behalf of my family, thank you. We appreciate your doing the time.
Great. God bless you, Hugh. I wish you a very blessed Christmas. And most importantly, thank you for hiring me. What an honor it's been to see Virginia become the state that we all know she should be.
Amen to that. Merry Christmas, Governor. Be well. It's been a busy morning already and a busy afternoon already. But I did want to take a moment to say I woke up this morning and opened up my texts, my emails. Then I go to my X account. It's like a kick in the gut. Norman Podhoretz had died. Now, Norman Podhoretz is 96. His son is an acquaintance, a friend, a guest on this program, known for a long time. I've only interviewed Norman Podhoretz a couple of times, but he's a giant in the American pantheon of intellectuals. And for different people, I heard this, in fact, in real time. I listened to the commentary pod today. And John wasn't there, sitting shivering, no doubt. But Abe Greenwald, Christine Rosen, and Eliana Johnson were there. And I was listening and taking notes. And they're all much younger than I am, right? So they all have different understandings of Norman Podhoretz. For Abe Greenwald, Norman Podhoretz, the great editor of Commentary magazine for forever, great New York intellectual. For Abe, it's the guy who introduced him to World War IV, the guy who explained what 9/11 was about and what it meant. And for Christine Rosen, it was American intellectual history and how much Norman Podhoretz, who she got to know in person like I did not, how much he loves the country, how he always used we versus I, was absolutely a patriot's patriot. And Eliana Johnson, who is young enough to be my daughter, said about him, look, he was an editor's editor. And then they got to talking about the fact that he didn't need to have credit for what the work he did. They told a couple of funny stories I had not heard, including the fact that the famous Dictatorships and Double Standards article by Gene Kirkpatrick came in at 100 pages, and Norman Podhoretz edited it down. Some magazines are writers' magazines. I think Eliana makes this point, or maybe Christine, or maybe Abe. And you just send in whatever you send in, and they check for typos, and they print it. That's not commentary. Commentary was it. But I'm a different age. And for me, Norman Podhoretz is one of the two key intellectual figures of sort of growing up. There's William F. Buckley and there's Norman Podhoretz. There's National Review and there's Commentary. And I can't say this for sure about either of them, but I think I can say it about both of them, that if there hadn't been both of those guys, there wouldn't have been a Reagan. The Reagan Revolution was made possible by those two guys. And I'm not sure that that Reagan would have made it without Norman Podhoretz. Because William F. Buckley had brought in and given voice to conservatives, but Norman Podhoretz brought in the neocons. And Richard Nixon used to say all the time about Goldwater people, you can't win without them, but you can't win with just them. So Norman Podhoretz brought in the neocons and broke. One of the key books of my intellectual growing up is Breaking Ranks. Came out in 1980. And I'd already, I sort of solidified who I was when I read Solzhenitsyn. But to find out what the smart people, that neocons were thinking, I had Buckley and the regular conservatives, right? William F. Buckley, Catholic, Republican, conservative, Yaley, for many of us, kind of our guiding light. And then Norman Podhoretz came in with the brass knuckles and delivered the blow to the jaw. And I mean, New York intellectual life is not for the faint of heart. I only spent part of 1980 there, but that's why Nixon, when he left San Clemente, I was working for him, RN wanted to go back to New York, because that's where the intellectual action was in the Cold War. And the Cold War went until 89. So for me, I picked up Commentary at college sometime in the mid to late 70s, and have never not been with it. But Norman Podhoretz gave language to people, taught them how to think about the Soviet Union, along with Reagan, gave Reagan language. I mean, he gave Gene Kirkpatrick the job because he published Dictatorships and Double Standards. He published Daniel Patrick Moynihan. He published James Q. Wilson. Every great thinker of the 70s and the 80s wrote for Commentary magazine, and their symposium issues, when they would put one question on the table and they would get 50 of the smartest people in the country to write about it, from all across the center right to the right, he may be, with Buckley, the two most important American intellectuals of the last 100 years. And I think I'm pretty comfortable saying that. More on him. Go to the Commentary podcast today. J-Pod's not there today, but he'll be back eventually. Read up. I see Tom Cotton has written a tribute to Norman Podhoretz. One of the giants. Really one of the giants. We shall not see their like again until people rise up to take on Xi Jinping and the Chinese Communist parties. That's Sting.
Savior Christ and his lady on Christmas Day, on Christmas Day. Our Savior Christ and his lady on Christmas Day.
I don't even know when he recorded that, but good for him. I'd like to open up the phones on a narrow casting way. If you have something good to say about Norman Podhoretz, 1-800-520-1234. 1-800-520-1234. And that's narrow casting, right? That's very narrow casting. Most talk show hosts will say, so what do you think today? And they'll throw the lines will fill up. You may never have heard of Norman Podhoretz. You may not read commentary. You may not, he's been out of the list for a while. He died at 96. I mean, a life well lived. He was predeceased by Midge Decter, a giant in her own life. And you may know of Ruth and of John and of commentary, but you might not know anything about Norman Podhoretz. But if you do, you're welcome to call, and we'll screen the calls. 1-800-520-1234. While we do that, I want to thank a couple of my sponsors. Consumer Cellular is a great, great sponsor, and you ought to check them out because you're probably paying too much for your cell phone bill. And it's not an expensive time of year, right? Call 1-800-411-4454 to find out how much you can save. And get your phone bill out before you do it so you'll have it there and you'll see what you're paying for data and what they can save you. Remember my promo code HUGH, H-U-G-H, that will get you your second month for free. But do you even know how much data you're paying for? Do you even know how much you're paying? You get big cell phone bills, but it'll mix up with your TV bill and you might get a bundle. You have no idea what you're paying for a cell phone bill. Well, they'll walk you through it. And especially if you're 50 years or older, you want to call 1-800-411-4454 because they have an offer for people who are 50 that you'll love. 2 unlimited lines. Unlimited data for 2 lines for just $60. That's just $30 per line unlimited. It's an easy way to manage your costs. It's great service. You don't have to sacrifice service for savings. You can have both. But you get your second month free when you use the code HUGH. So whether you go to consumercellular.com/Hugh or you call 800-411-4454, it's time to check. Let me check over here with Dan in Oakland, California. Hi, Dan. Welcome to the program. You have a Podhoretz comment?
Yeah, hi, my name is Elon, and I'm calling from Oakland. I just wanted to say I grew up reading Commentary magazine. My father was the first subscribed to it, and it fundamentally changed my life. I think the ideas and the idea that conservative ideas could win the argument, and it was about learning about and being able to communicate that, I think is what basically led the Reagan Revolution, and I think it's what's caused conservatism to be the dominant philosophical, political idea in my lifetime, and it's just changed my feelings about the world.
I got to ask you a question. What other magazines did you get in the household?
We used to get The Economist back when it was somewhat conservative, though other people liked it, though to me it was always much harder to read and to really connect to. But I guess at a period we got the New Republic as well.
Yep. When I was in my magazine prime, I got the National Review, the New Republic, back when Fred Barnes was TRB, even when Kinsley was TRB, but always commentary, because commentary brought the heat, right? They brought the international affairs, national security, domestic policy. I know some people like the national interest, and it was very important. I mean, they did a lot of good work there too, but they weren't beating the commies, right? The communists were being beaten up by commentary, and no holds barred. They spelled it out for us.
Right, exactly. And I mean, just everything from social issues to economic issues to international issues, just the idea that you could think things through and that you didn't have to go along with what everyone else was saying, but at the same time you were rational and more intelligent. It was just a profound change, and I think profoundly has changed the way people think through politics. Even
and the back of the magazine, I'm just curious, did you read the stuff at the back of the mag, the literary reviews, the movie review, everything that was cultural? That's not Ohio, right? That's all new to me. Was it important for you as well, what I'll call the back of the mag?
Yeah, the sense that this was about culture and literature and improving the human condition in as broadly a possible way also changed it, that these things weren't separate, that it wasn't, it wasn't just yelling and arguing about politics. Absolutely.
Exactly. The world was very big. It was much bigger than I knew. And commentary. And by the way, I'm not throwing shade on National Review. It showed you the world was big too. Commentary was a different kind of big. It was a different set of ideas by different writers and different names and different cultures. And man, it just was throw the windows open. And your dad got it. That's remarkable in Oakland. And you picked it. How old were you when you started reading it?
I think it was about 11, 12. It was the first thing that I ever read besides sports. It was also the first thing I ever learned to enjoy reading. It was the first thing that ever made me think that reading was exciting.
Yeah, I mean, I got SI too. I always asked for a Sports Illustrated National Review for Christmas. Then I had a commentary when I got older. And, I didn't want to pay for the subscriptions, but they were great Christmas presents. So, Ian, thank you so much. Perfect. Exactly what I hope someone would say that I had no idea someone would say. Thank you, Ian. I do also want to tell you about American Legislative Exchange Council, ALEC, another place for ideas. The American Legislative Exchange Council gathers the ideas from the 50 states where the state legislators are hard at work. And you can get a rundown on them once a week if you go to alec.org/Hugh, 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 and you'll find out what are they doing. Like you heard Governor Youngkin talk about everything that's happened in Virginia. We've been at the laboratory front of the room for 4 years as he's just gotten stuff done left, right, and center. Not all states are like Virginia. Some of them are way behind the times. They're never going to catch up if they don't figure out the Virginia miracle. But if you want to find out what that is and how it gets done, go subscribe to the American Legislative Exchange Council State of the States newsletter at alec.org/Hugh. That's alec.org/Hugh. I was right. Tom Cotton made a floor statement today, and he wrote something as well. The senator from Arkansas, I'm not surprised to find out, was a devotee of Norman Podhoretz. I retweeted it, and I retweeted John Podhoretz's excerpt from the Christopher Walken movie King of New York. It's pretty clever, but then J-Pod is very clever. Go over to my X account if you want to see it. If you're interested in what I think, I wrote a piece for Fox News tomorrow. I have to tell you as well, it's a bad day on the markets. All right. Dow's down 0.5%. S&P's down 1 1/10. NASDAQ is down almost 1 3/4%. And I'm angry right now at 4 Republicans in the House. 4 Republicans who did a discharge petition. I don't get upset with the Republicans in blue districts when they work for something like SALT. I really don't. I understand they're representing their constituents. They are not representing their constituents in voting for the extension of subsidies of Obamacare because Obamacare is a catastrophe. And we haven't got that kind of money to keep shoveling out a temporary subsidy. So these 4 Republicans sided with Hakeem Jeffries and the crazy left to posture. And I know they have tough races coming up. I understand that. Always willing to help a Republican out in a tough district. Hang on to the seat. But I don't know about this. This is just showboating. There is no way that we're going to continue the subsidies for Obamacare that were temporary for COVID. It's a disaster of a program. We don't even know how bad it is because we have this Band-Aid over it that costs $40 billion a year. Doesn't affect anywhere even close to 3/4 of America. It doesn't affect even a quarter of Americans. And so don't tell me your election depends upon it in your district. You're showboating. These 4 Republicans. And they're not the knucklehead caucus. They're the liberal wing of the... Look, I understand. I want them to win. But I don't know if it's worth this. I really don't know. I'm a party guy. I'm with Disraeli. People who rise by party should never decry party. And you got to support... You got to understand, you got to work for. Mike Johnson went to the mat for these guys, like Mike Lawler. And then, for clicks, it's not going to get them elected. They need everybody to get them elected. They're in a marginal district. They can't lose people. And right now, I wouldn't be surprised if the National Republican Congressional Committee said, see ya, because this is such a bad move, a discharge petition on Obamacare subsidies. It's got nothing to do with Republicanism, nothing to do with conservatism, nothing. It's not within a javelin throw of conservatism's far left edge. They ought to take their names off that discharge petition right away. Now I have my second exit interview of the day with Ohio's Attorney General, I think America's best Attorney General, David Yost, who's been laboring at that oar for 8 years. And I wanted to check in with him before he left town. David Yost, how are you, General?
Fantastic. How are you, Hugh?
I'm good, Will. Are we going to win the national champ? You're the real Buckeye. I'm just a fan. You actually went there. Are we going to get 2 rings?
Yeah, we're going to have a great run at the national championship.
All right. I'm going out on a limb here and saying it's going to be 2 rings. General, a couple of weeks ago, before I get to what you're going to do next and what your greatest accomplishments are, you brought to my attention that the City Club was going to cancel our friend Aaron Bear, and so I jumped on your bandwagon, and they didn't cancel him. I guess they never even threatened to cancel him. What's your understanding of what happened there? But thank you for stepping into it.
Well, I appreciate you picking it up. You put a national voice into the mix. Look, he had been invited. He's an interesting guy. He's built an incredible organization here called the Center for Christian Virtue and been tremendously effective in the General Assembly. Doesn't win everything, but he's made a lot of progress here in Ohio. And the City Club, which fashions itself as a citadel of free speech, invited him to come on January 16th and address their Cleveland audience. I don't need to tell you that this skews maybe left of center a little.
Just a bit.
And and very appropriately, he agreed. And then the word got out, and some LGBTQIA plus activists started passing a petition and raising hell about the fact that this Christian activist was going to be allowed to come and address the City Club, and asked for him to be deplatformed. Now, this is the same City Club that had a national speaker in on gay rights during Pride Month last year. So obviously they have already had that point of view in the mix. So it's a private organization. The First Amendment does not apply to them, but I urged them to not abandon their position on free speech and to not disinvite him. And that letter got out into the wild, and fortunately, after a few days of consideration, the board elected to confirm their invitation to Aaron. He'll be talking there in Cleveland to that audience on the 16th of January. I was so pleased. I bought a table, and I'm going to bring some of my friends to hear him. So
good.
At least has a couple of folks that don't think he's
we'll keep talking it up, because City Club's a good organization. I didn't want them to actually bend or break.
They are.
So good for you for leading the fight. And you've led a lot of fights. I wanted to talk to you about your 8 years as Attorney General and then find out what you're going to do next, because you've won a lot of big cases, especially on religious liberty. What do you consider to be your triumphs in 8 years as the AG, Dave Yost?
Well, I've got another year to go before I leave office. But you're right. I mean, we have been out there in the trenches, and some of the things are ones that have been national. And we were led the amicus effort on the Wisconsin Catholic Charities case that was about whether the government gets to decide whether your charity work is sufficiently religious enough to qualify for a tax exemption. Of course, the Supreme Court said, no, government, you don't get to use your determination to decide what's religious and what's not. But I think it's maybe the stuff I'm proudest of, Hugh, is the little stuff that doesn't make the headlines. A place called Dad's Place that stay as a church in downtown, small town here in Northwest Ohio. And the powers that be didn't like them staying open all night and ministering to people who were homeless, some of them, quite tragic stories, and tried to use fire code and various municipal building codes to shut them down because they didn't want them there. Um, First, Liberty Institute represented them, and I was proud that we weighed in as well at both the trial court level and the state appellate court level. That case was just remanded with instructions to the local court that they could not use these laws to harass Dad's place in carrying out their religious mission. Or
Yeah,
how about
General
Kent
Yost,
State,
every time I turn around,
again here in Ohio?
go ahead.
Yeah.
Well, every time I turn around, you're fighting
around.
for religious liberty. You just did it again and again. I think you did it with the Toledo school system. I think you've done it in amicus briefs, and you've written a lot of letters to stop people from doing dumb things. And you do have a year left. You were going to run for governor, and then you decided not to. Are you eyeing one of the new congressional districts?
No. Congress is so broken. I don't want to go to Washington. Look, I'm going to stay involved. There's no shuffleboard court in my immediate future, but I'm going to be looking at some other options, whether that's helping to train the next generation of lawyers to stand up for our Constitution, or whether it's entering, some sort of public interest law firm and doing some work there. But when I'm done as Attorney General next year, I will stay in the fight.
Now, General, what I really wanted to ask you about, and it's kind of sneaky tricky, I had on the president's AI czar yesterday, David Sachs, and the president issued an executive order that I think it's unprecedented, and I asked David, and he's unaware of it, of any precedent, purporting to preempt states from regulating AI out of their state legislatures. They, of course, want to stop California from screwing up AI for everyone, just like they screwed up cars for everyone, but that had to be repealed. You're a Federalist. You're like Mr. Federalist. What do you think of that executive order? And David was quick to say, Congress can preempt under the Interstate Commerce Clause. I know that, but it's an EO from Article 2. I don't know if you've even thought it through yet, but what's your initial reaction to that?
Yeah, so I've actually, when I heard the first news about this, I was immediately concerned. I don't think there is such a thing as Article 2 preemption, but I understand the president's goal, and it's a worthy goal. I've got a team that's tearing the EO apart, looking at the potential legislation that we have in the General Assembly here. At the moment, the federal government is not taking any action to prevent us from doing anything, withholding any resources. So it's a little bit academic right now, but as somebody who plays an academic occasionally in the media, I have to say I've got some concerns about this that ultimately will be dependent upon how does the president attempt to implement that EO. But I question whether there's such a thing as Article 2 preemption.
I've never seen one. And he can stand up task force at the Department of Justice to sue for states that interfere with interstate commerce. But that brings me to my last question. And I'm hitting you with cold, and if you haven't thought about it, you don't have to answer it. There are district court vacancies. There are Sixth Circuit vacancies coming up. Do you ever want to be a judge? You're always in the fight. Would you want to be a judge?
I wouldn't have wanted to even consider that for most of my career because I'm an advocate. I'm too passionate to be a judge, I've said. But as I've matured a little bit, I think I might enjoy that work. Of course, the question is, in this day and age, are my years too advanced to qualify? And I guess that's for somebody else to decide.
You know, I would say to Senators Houston and Marino, I'll bet you're good for 25. My grandfather stayed on the bench until he was 88 or something like that. So he was a Superior Court judge up in Jefferson County, in Ashtabula County, in Jefferson City. And I think it would be great. And I'm glad to hear you not say no. Not say yes, I want to do it, not say no, just that you would think about it. David, Merry Christmas. Thanks for your work on behalf of First Amendment issues and for the Center for Christian Virtue and for the Republican Attorney Generals Association across the country. And I don't think you're too long in the tooth. I hope somebody's listening. David Yost, thank you, friend. After the massacre in Australia, I immediately began to think of Andrew McCarthy, longtime prosecutor with the Southern District of New York. He put the blind sheikh behind bars and broke up the ring and convicted the ring that blew up the World Trade Center the first time. Then he wrote 2 books, one of them, Willful Blindness. That was his first book. I interviewed him for C-SPAN on that book. And then The Grand Jihad. Then after the shooting at Brown, I thought about him a second time. And then after the subway attack in New York, I asked Danielle, our booking producer, to please get Andy, and he's available on short notice. Andy, welcome. How are you doing? I mean, it's kind of a bad day for everyone because Norman Podhoretz died, but how are you doing?
I'm doing fine. I was just telling Generalissimo that the world may be spinning off its axis, but I'm fine. And it's almost Christmas, so there's a silver lining here someplace.
I thought of you most recently before we get to the Islamicism resurgent, when I was asked to do Winners and Losers of the Week on Special Report. And I'm not a National League fan; I'm a Guardians fan, but I love the New York Mets. New York Post cover, you gotta be Reeve. Did that hit hard?
That was up there. That's almost up there with Ford to New York, Drop Dead, right? I mean,
yeah.
That one
I think people
to the Hall of Fame.
People went out and bought 3 copies so they could frame them for each floor of their house. And what happened to the Mets? Like, I really don't know anything other than what Generalissimo tells me about the Angels and the Dodgers. I do not follow the National League. How much did they lose?
Well, I think the thing that frustrates most of us is that the big problem last year was the starting pitching, and that hasn't been addressed at all. I can't really, Stearns is a smart guy, and if he looked at the core of the team and said, this is not going to work, this group is not going to win a World Series, I have to say that you got to break it up, and because that's the goal, even though I love Alonso and I like Diaz and love Nimmo. But, I think they're not addressing what the consensus here is the problem, which is starting pitching, so that's a little frustrating.
Well, that's also the Angels. You and Dwayne can talk off air during the break. Actually, I'm going to talk to you during the break, so next time. Let's get to the key subject at hand. Bondi Beach, and then we had the New York subway incident, and in between them, the shooting in Brown. I want to go out of sequence. What are your thoughts about the shooting at Brown? Because in all the years I've been in media, it's 35 years, there's never been a mass shooting that they didn't catch the perp within 48 hours that I'm aware of. Are you aware of any?
Off the top of my head, no. And I would have thought that if we were ever going to see that, Hugh, I guess that, Ramzi Youssef got away with the right after the World Trade Center bombing, but we did manage to arrest some people. He was the mastermind, but he did manage to get out of the country. But off the top of my head, not only no, but you would think that a college campus, especially a modern American college campus where there are cameras just everywhere, you would think it would be inconceivable.
Do you think it is possible he is holding someone hostage or that someone is hiding him?
I think we can't discount anything because it seems to me that even though they didn't have a good look at his face, with all the different technology they have, including for detecting people on the basis of how they walk and other attributes, you would think they could have struck gold with that, with the image that they did have, even if it wasn't facial. So you would hope that even though they're not, they're holding back information, you would hope that they've narrowly got the circle now of potential suspects, and if they haven't been able to nab the person, that means that anything could be going on that it'd be vacant speculation. What worries me is that they don't have a suspect, and I hope that's not true.
Are you alarmed that they won't tell us what he was yelling in the room? And everyone's speculating. I'm not, but he was shouting something, and it appears he targeted a few people and didn't shoot other people. What's it add up to you?
I am distressed that they haven't told us what the guy was yelling. I mean, I'm as aware as you are of the speculation about what it is. And if it is indicative of jihadist terrorism, that's a piece of information that you would think they would put out. I have to say, putting out the picture of the second person, I really hope they were very clear that that is not a person who's a suspect, that it's just someone they think may have information or may have seen something that's relevant. But I must say, if you're going to put out that kind of obscure information to the public, and yet you have something he was yelling while he was shooting and you're withholding that, I don't understand that at all.
Yeah, that makes I know two real lawyers, you and Kurt, and they're on both coasts, and you both say the same thing. I don't know anything about criminal law or the FBI getting involved. By the way, do you think the Bureau is involved and they're just not telling us? They're not at the press conferences.
I think, Hugh, that what may have happened here is they really did kind of botch the first 72 hours of the Charlie Kirk aftermath. And what I'm hoping is that they,
smart.
in the aftermath of that, talked about discipline and message discipline, and let's not say anything or rear our heads till we have something helpful to contribute, because otherwise they just look inept. So I think it would be, if that was the after-action review after the Charlie Kirk homicide, I think that's beneficial.
Okay, now drawing the camera way out to 3,000 feet, do you tie up Bondi Beach with the New York City subway, the anti-Semites going after the Chabadniks? Are we seeing anti-Semitism having its renaissance, its resurgence?
Yeah, see, I've never seen it that way. And you mentioned my books earlier. That interview we did almost 20 years ago.
I know, it's remarkable.
About 18 years ago. But I enjoyed that interview so much because we were able to talk about how that was in the aftermath, even though the case happened in 95, it was in the aftermath of 9/11. And the big difference then, and I still think it's true, is that in our courtroom, presided over by Michael Mukasey, then a district judge, later President Bush's attorney general, there wasn't political correctness, and we were able to show the jury a straight line between doctrine, animating figures like the blind sheikh, and the effect that it had on young Muslims. And we were not forced to shy away from the doctrinal aspects of this. In later years, the government tried to tamp down on the ideological basis for all this because they thought that we couldn't walk and chew gum. Like if they said this was an interpretation of Islam, we were somehow smearing every Muslim on the planet, which was ridiculous. So to me, because I had to go to school on that stuff back in the early 90s, this is doctrinal. This is what the doctrine is. And if you're going to have immigration policies and other policies that enable a critical mass of immigrants from fundamentalist Islamic countries and from hotbeds of radical Islam, and you're going to let them collect in the big cities, not only in the United States but Europe, you're going to get this.
In recent months, years actually, since 10/7 in Israel, I've become quite a fan of Haviv Redhig Gur. And
Yes.
like you, he's always wanting to talk about the doctrine because it's his belief you can't understand Hamas, excuse me, or any part of the jihad until you get Qutb and the whole fundamentalist Wahhabism down. Have you followed him?
I have. I agree with him. I've actually listened to a number of your interviews with him, and through that became more of a avid follower. I think he's excellent. But I think what he would say not to put words in his mouth, is that this is pretty straightforward. What probably frustrates him, as it frustrates me, is it's such an obvious point. I wrote a book called The Grand Jihad, which was about the Muslim Brotherhood ideology and its operations in the West. And I pointed out that the most successful project of the Muslim Brotherhood, which is almost in the United States from like the 80s on, was dedicated to the flourishing of Hamas. Hamas is the Palestinian branch of the Muslim Brotherhood. But the most successful project that they had in the West was the Muslim Students Associations. In fact, they started with a handful of chapters in the mid-1960s, and they now have hundreds of chapters across North America, the United States and Canada. And that is not a social organization. That's a program. And my point is, like, there are a lot of people who woke up after 10/7 and they couldn't believe the campus activism. And I just shook my head and said, if you let this go on for 3 generations, and that program was so successful, it gave way to the another organization, the North American Islamic Society. I'm probably screwing up the name. But the thing was, the Muslim Students Associations were so successful, they had to have a successor organization, which is now the biggest Islamist organization in North America, because so many people went through the program. So I'm not remotely surprised by this. What surprises me is that people don't want to understand what they believed. If you can think about, like, if we went into World War II and we didn't want to know what the Nazis believed or what the Shinto Japanese believed, we would all say that was insane, that you couldn't protect a country without knowing what the enemy was trying to accomplish. And yet here, it's like institutionalized and always has been that we have to put our head in the thing.
That's very well said. I'm going to have you say it again on the other side, Andy. Not wanting to know what the other side believes is suicidal. And I got a letter from Harvard yesterday, an email asking for money or telling me that Graeber is going to be the president. And in that letter they said, he will continue the efforts against anti-Semitism and anti-Arab discrimination. And I thought, good Lord, nothing's changed. There is no anti-Arab discrimination at Harvard. It's not the problem. When and does an Australian shootout like the one that happened on Saturday in Australia at Bondi Beach happen in the United States, do you think?
Happily, I think that there's less chance of it. I'm not going to say that there's zero chance of it, but the big difference, I think, between the United States and Europe, Canada, and Australia is we don't have anything like no zones here. So far, the police, whether it's federal or municipal police, have not essentially surrendered sovereignty. In particular areas where you have cauldrons of jihadism, that's where you would expect this stuff to blossom. And what they've done in Europe, this was Sheikh Karadawi's strategy. He was Sheikh Yusuf Karadawi was the kind of the beacon for the Muslim Brotherhood. His idea was to tell Muslims, integrate but don't assimilate, form up enclaves in major cities in the West, and once you get to a critical mass, agitate in order to have Sharia autonomy in the local area. And once they've gotten to critical mass in a number of places, they're very hostile to the police and other agents of the state. And when you have an environment like that, that's where the fundamentalist preaching can take place, the recruitment, the fundraising, and it lends itself to an atmosphere where you can actually train for jihadist activities. The difference mainly between successful and unsuccessful jihadist plots is training. Where you can have it, you're much more likely to have terrorist attacks. Where the police can infiltrate, you're much less likely to have them.
Now, Andy, I know you've been a critic of the Trump Justice Department on a lot of different things. do you think the Bureau and DOJ and state attorney, are they on the lookout for this? Are they still where we were on 9/12? I think it's gone away, but I could just be blind to the fact it's better than I think it is, and it's everywhere. Surveillance and infiltration.
Yeah, I think the FBI and the Justice Department in this administration are less apt to be captured by political correctness, and they won't be afraid to take a shot if there's, they won't be afraid to be proactive. I mean, I think this plot that they just broke up, the New Year's Day plot, shows that. I think they'll be active. I think this is the kind of thing they'll be good on. I worry about how well the president grasps Sharia supremacism. We're back to talking about the ideology again, because I think sometimes the president thinks that everybody has a price and everybody, can look beyond ideology and other things they care about. And I think there's a lot of evil actors in the world, Hugh, that, they're captured by evil ideology and they're not looking to make a deal.
I still ask first-time guests if they've read The Looming Tower. I've been doing that since Lawrence Wright wrote it. An astonishing number of people don't even know what it is. Some people have said they've read a part of it or heard about it and want to read it. But I really think it's been 25 years, right?
Yep.
Are we off our guard again?
Well, it's a natural phenomenon when you go through a spate of time. I think it's pretty remarkable that we haven't had a reprise of 9/11, given how hard they've tried. But the one thing I can say, and we're looking for a silver lining here, Hugh. I'll say this: the cooperation between law enforcement and intelligence, and the way that they take information from the public and move it up the chain, is night and day better today than it was in 1993. And I think the real reason we haven't had a reprise is because the guys no matter what the political people are saying, the guys on the front line who do this, the intelligence guys, the cops, the FBI agents in the field, they actually do a good job and they share information, which is vital.
And a last silver lining, we got 30 seconds. Do you think some of the Muslim majority countries are also all in with us in stopping the Brotherhood?
No. I think that the regimes are. But like Egypt is a very difficult country for us because the regime is more or less pro-American and pro-Western, but it's a cauldron of fundamentalist Islam, the population.
All right, realism is what we get with Andy. I hope you take back the pen, and I'll listen to the McCarthy Report this week when you and Rich get together, because it's going to be one for the ages, I think. Andrew C. McCarthy on X, the McCarthy Report, wherever podcasts are. Thank you, and a Merry Christmas, Andy. Maybe the Mets will put a pitching tree under your tree for you. Thank you, friend. President Trump will be addressing the nation tonight at 9 o'clock Eastern, 6 o'clock out in California. I haven't seen any leaks, and that makes me think I'm going to have to step and watch that and pay very close attention. The president did go to Dover Air Force Base today to preside over the dignified transfer of remains of our 2 soldiers and civilian who were murdered by jihadists in Syria. Here's one of the things he said today, cut number 1.
It's a blockade. Not going to let anybody going through that shouldn't be going through. You remember they took all of our energy rights.
That's the wrong order. Can I go back? I'm looking for what he had to say about our service members. Let's try cut number 2.
Well, I think the message this evening is we inherited
one more. Let's try cut number 3 first.
Well, that was a beautiful event for 3 great people. And they're now looking down, and their parents and wives and all of the people that were there were, devastated, but great people. Great people. So thank you very much for.
I think it's important for the commander-in-chief to do those events, to be at Dover. They can't do them all. George W. Bush went. President Obama went. I think President Biden went, and it was a controversial moment. But, again, he was faltering already early in his term from age. And the president did not give a long availability on the tarmac. Can we play again what he had to say about the service members, cut number 3?
Well, that was a beautiful event for 3 great people. And they're now looking down, and their parents and wives and all of the people that were there were, devastated, but great people. Great people. So thank you very much for being there.
He is back. He was delivering that at Joint Base Andrews after the dignified transfer of remains ceremony at Dover Air Force Base. Now let's go back. Many people think tonight he's talking about Venezuela. I'm one of them, but I could be wrong. Cut number 1.
Just a blockade. Not going to let anybody going through that shouldn't be going through. You remember they took all of our energy rights. They took all of our oil from not that long ago, and we want it back. But they took it. They illegally took it.
He's referring to the expropriation of oil leases that the United States companies doing business in Venezuela had paid for, and they were expropriated. I don't know when the leases were granted or how much they were worth, but it's a Cuba-like seizure of everything that was American. Then cut number 2, also about tonight.
Well, I think the message this evening is we inherited a mess, and we've done a great job, and we continue to, and our country is going to be stronger than ever before.
So that leads me to believe that it's not the invasion of Venezuela tonight. George H.W. Bush ordered the invasion of Panama on December 15th, 1989, and soldiers and sailors have told me we can do it just about as easily as was Panama. I know a lot of you say it's much, much bigger than Venezuela. Yes, than Panama is, yes. But the leadership structure is very narrow. It is not supported by the people, and there is a government in exile. In fact, they've lost 2 elections. Maduro has stolen 2 presidential elections. So the people would be with us. I'm not going to make the mistake that was made in Iraq. They won't greet us with flowers. They will have some Chavistas, Hugo Chavez's people, who will be unhappy to lose their gigs and their sinecures. And they may have guns and there may be a resistance, but I don't think we're going there to regime change. We're going there to get Maduro and his top group of people and then let the country... Venezuela was a prosperous, the richest country in South America 50 years ago. And it should be the wealthiest, most prosperous country in South America today because of their vast, vast reservoirs of oil and natural gas and their port facilities, and they've run it into the ground. But cut number 2, again, this is cut number 2, suggests we're going to get a year in review tonight. Cut number 2.
Well, I think the message this evening is we inherited a mess, and we've done a great job, and we continue to, and our country is going to be stronger than ever before.
And so I think it's going to be, here's what we've done, here's what we're going to do, don't forget this, don't forget that. But then there's this about Venezuela. We do have a blockade on Venezuela. That's an act of war. It doesn't require... President Kennedy did not get a declaration of war on Cuba when he imposed the blockade on Cuba in 1962. George H.W. Bush did not get an act of Congress when he invaded Venezuela. I know that there are a handful of people, Senator Paul and a couple other people who say we need one, we don't need one, but here's the Venezuelan quote in case you only heard a little bit of it, cut number 1.
Just a blockade. Not going to let anybody going through that shouldn't be going through. You remember they took all of our energy rights. They took all of our oil from not that long ago, and we want it back. But they took it. They illegally took it.
All right, so tune in tonight at 9 o'clock. Let me remind you, the Angel Tree is sponsoring right now a remarkable campaign, and so many of you are giving. Thank you. We are in the final days, 8 days left, of our annual Angel Tree campaign, and I'd like you to hear Scott Jennings, my colleague on Salem, reached out to Bruce Pearl, legendary Auburn basketball coach, who coached for 11 seasons before retiring, about the tragic shootings in Australia over the weekend, but the coach wanted to say something before that. Cut number 2.
But listen, brother, before I comment on what happened in Australia, I want to tell you that the Bruce Pearl family is going to donate to the Angel Tree campaign, and I'm going to call that 888-206-2006. 2793 number as soon as you and I are done with this interview, and help some fathers that are in prison show that kids that they still love them, because it's so important. So thank you for doing it.
I think Bruce Pearl, he didn't want to run. He could be senator, right? Tommy Tuberville is retiring to run for governor. Bruce Pearl could have won by acclamation. Even the Alabama fans would have voted for the guy. He's an amazing, amazing American. And I'm glad he's helping Angel Tree. It reminds me when Senator Inhofe called up and said, I want 10 kids. I want to sponsor 10 kids, but I got to meet them. I want to meet them. All you have to do is go to the banner at the top of HughHewitt.com, the banner at the top of HughHewitt.com, or you can call 888-206-2764, 888-206-2764. One more time. Be like Bruce Pearl. 888-206-2764. $30 takes care of another kid. You can take care of 3, 4, 5, 10, whatever, like Jan and Carol took care of hundreds of them. Thank you in advance. I'm still touched by Bruce Pearl saying he's going to call up and donate to Angel Tree. He's a guest of Scott Jennings. As you know, Bruce Pearl is Jewish. He's a big activist on behalf of Israel. He stands up for Jewish America, very proud Jew. And I know Scott must have had him to talk about Australia. I didn't hear the interview. But I want to play the clip again, just because Bruce Pearl is a great American. Can we hit that again for Angel Tree?
Listen, brother, before I comment on what happened in Australia, I want to tell you that the Bruce Pearl family is going to donate to the Angel Tree campaign, and I'm going to call that 888-206-2793 number as soon as you and I are done with this interview, and help some fathers that are in prison show that kids that they still love them, because it's so important. So thank you for doing it.
If Bruce Pearl can do that, a legendary basketball coach, doing an interview about breaking news. Hey, wait a minute, Scott. Let's take care of the men in prison so that they can connect with their families. So can you. The Angel Tree banner is at the top of HughHewitt.com. I am, however, in the Relief Factor studio. And I have not reminded you this hour because we've been busy. I have Senator Thune coming up at the top of next hour, part 2 of a 3-part interview on what 2025 has held and what's ahead in 2026. But I am in the Relief Factor studio, and Relief Factor makes it possible for me to be up north when I'm up north, out west when I'm out west, in the Beltway when I'm anchored here in the Beltway. And they do it because I believe in the product so much, and I've been taking it soon to be 13 years, January 1, 13 years ago, and haven't missed many days. Can't say I've missed any, I don't lie to you ever, but I take my Relief Factor with me on the road, usually have it in my pocket. Usually take it first thing in the morning when I'm on the road, but I take it in the first hour of the show every day when I'm on the air. And it's because even though I've been like a slug for 4 days, because it's been below 20 degrees in D.C., and that's my breaking point, 32. All right? If there's ice, I'm not going out. There's a story in the family, which may be apocryphal, that I tripped over a line painted on a basketball court and got a double compound fracture. The double compound fracture is not apocryphal. That actually happened, and I was in shock, and I was 14. I think I was tripped. My brothers like to say I'm so coordinated that I tripped over the line, painted on the court. But the Relief Factor doesn't do anything for double compound fractures. But it sure does do things for the minor aches and pains that come with exercise and aging, and you're definitely doing the latter, and you should be doing the former. And if you pull something, if you got a funny, your back's out, your neck hurts, you lifted the baby too many times, you should give it a try. 1-800, the number 4, and the word relief, 3-week starter pack, $19.95, less than $1 a day. 1-800, the number 4, and the word relief, or go to their website. You can find the starter pack there as well at relieffactor.com, relieffactor.com. Let's go to part 2 of that interview with Leader Thune. Now, to my surprise, Leader Thune, 2 Congressional Review Acts passed. I didn't even know that they were there. I thought maybe people forgot about it, but I listened to Dan Sullivan. That really has saved our bacon in Alaska. I had totally forgotten about those things. And you got 2 of them through last week.
We did, and that makes 24 for the year. And these are rolling back burdensome Biden regulations that in many cases, and as Dan Sullivan points out, there were 70, if you can believe this, 70 Biden regulations that went after the energy industry in the state of Alaska. It was almost like he singled them out, and it was just, had a specific intent of blowing up the state of Alaska. So we've restored some sanity, particularly in the area of energy. But a lot of these Biden-era regulations that needed to go by the wayside, we use the Congressional Review Act, which is a legislative vehicle available to do that. And 22 of the 24 that we passed through the Senate have now been signed into law by the president. So it's a mechanism to undo a lot of the damage done by the previous administration. We've used it, I think, very effectively. Got rid of the California, the EPA waiver, which would have required that electric, vehicles be 35% of the cars in the country next year, and by 2035, 100%, which is just virtually impossible and crazy. And California had managed to export that policy to 18 other states around the country. So we came up with a fairly creative way of taking that down. But that's also something I think, as we look back on this past year, is a real, I think, accomplishment to keep Republicans together to undo a lot of the Biden-year damage.
A lot of legislative wins, but sometimes it's also important just not to lose. And you didn't lose. You didn't blink in the shutdown. I don't know if that was ever in doubt, was it? Because you just couldn't blink there, and I'm so glad you didn't.
Yeah, I mean, that's, as you know, it's hard because there's a lot of pressure, and you get people, people in our office. Every day you come in, you aren't getting paid. And it's, becomes a very personal issue. But what they did was just unprecedented and completely uncalled for. I mean, they got themselves in over their skis, and the left, the far left in this country, was calling the shots. And Chuck Schumer was taking his orders, marched us into this thing. It was totally unnecessary, totally uncalled for, and frankly, unprecedented and historic what they did, and we, for 43 days, endured it. The American people had to endure it. But if we had caved and given in and rewarded that kind of bad behavior, we would just get more of it. You'd see more and more of that. So it was important that we hold the line, but it's again another indication of just the hatred that the left has for the President of the United States. We see it playing out every single day here in the Senate.
I want to add another category. You don't have to do anything when the war power is invoked by the president. I know the War Powers Act, I think, is unconstitutional, but when he did Operation Midnight Hammer, when we're doing the interdictions in the Caribbean and the flotilla, and who knows what's been announced at 5 o'clock tonight, you have led the Republicans in standing behind the president. I don't think we've lost anyone with the exception perhaps of Senator Paul on a thing or two. Am I right about that?
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, there are others who were sympathetic to the argument that's made on that particular issue, but I think the president's perfectly within his rights as the commander-in-chief to exercise the authority that he has under the Constitution to protect Americans and American interest, and that's certainly what he's been doing with these targeting these terrorist cartels that are poisoning the American people with the drugs that they've been bringing into this country. And so, there's always going to be questions around that, and of course, especially now because it's this president, the Democrats have really hypercharged their attacks on him, but he's had good support from Republicans here because we believe he's on the right track when it comes to protecting Americans, and that's his piece of strength is the policy he's adopted, and one that I agree with and share. It's a dangerous world, and this president is not going to shy away from doing what it takes to protect Americans.
I want to add as well, anti-Semitism is everywhere, and we saw it in Bondi Beach in Australia. I think it may have a role in the murder of the MIT professor. I don't know anything about Brown. I'm not ruling it out. But you've kept the caucus together and united behind our ally, Israel. That's getting tougher every day, given what's happening to the Democratic Party. Is that on the agenda for 2026?
It is, and I think that notwithstanding what is happening and I don't understand, with Democrats in this country, that used to be a bipartisan issue, but they have their political left, the pro-Hamas wing of the Democrat Party is ascendant right now. It's where the energy is and a lot of the money is in Democrat politics. You see it playing out in some of these elections around the country. And that's really unfortunate because support for Israel is a time-honored policy of this country and our greatest ally in that part of the world, and an ally with whom we have so much in common on, going back to faith tradition, to the economy, to national security interests, and to democracy. There are just so many reasons why our support for Israel needs to be unequivocal, especially at a time when they are constantly under attack. And so, it's hard to explain where the Dems are, but we will continue here, at least in the Senate, on the Republican side of the aisle, with continuing a very strong message of support and backing it up with actions.
Now, Leader, it's important to realize you not only have to move legislation and get the caucus there, and you have to get stuff done and stop stuff from happening, but it's also important. You got to look ahead. You got to hold the majority, and that means Senator Collins next year, Senator Houston in Ohio, even Senator Sullivan, given their screwy voting system up there. And you've got open seats in North Carolina, Kentucky, and Iowa. The great Mitch McConnell stepping down. Joni Ernst is stepping down. Tom Tillis is stepping down. How do you feel about who you've recruited and how it's going on those 3 vacancies and our 3 targets, Senators Collins, Houston, and Sullivan?
We feel really good about where those races all are, Hugh. It's a midterm election, and you have correctly, as you always do, diagnosed where the races and where our challenges are and vulnerabilities are around the country. But midterm elections, there's typically you're facing a little bit of a headwind, but these are really strong incumbents. And in the case of Senator Collins, has run against so many times outperformed Republicans, not only in her state but all over the country. And Houston is a great new senator from Ohio, really accomplished, hardworking, and I think he's going to be in great shape there, and really important too because of who he's running against. Democrats recruited Sherrod Brown, a far left Democrat, and somebody we need to make sure that doesn't come back to the Senate. So we're going to be working hard on that one. Of course, Ashley Hinson's a great recruit in Iowa. We're really delighted that she stepped up into that race. We hate to lose Joni, but Ashley will be a great replacement. But it's going to take a lot of resources, and clearly we need the president and being out there helping these folks, and then also having a record of accomplishment to run on, which I think they do. And then we've got those states, as you mentioned, we've got some pickup opportunities too, and we're going to be working hard not only to protect and preserve our majority, but hopefully to expand upon it. But that'll take a huge team effort. The president and our incumbents, our challengers, all of our supporters out there and donors working together to keep the team on the field and make sure that we have majority.
I haven't forgotten Michigan and Georgia, maybe even Minnesota, but that's for another time. You also have to start recruiting an NRSC chair for the next cycle, don't you? Have you got anyone in mind? Are you talking to people?
There are some folks who have an interest in that, and we've got some. Believe it or not, I mean, it's a hard job, as you know. You're going out every day, every week, basically, trying to raise resources to support the team, and it takes an enormous amount of time. So, but we get people who are really. I'm so grateful that we got people who really are difference makers here and see that as an important role, and I think we'll have a good person in that spot.
Stand by. I'm going to come back with the final part of my interview with Leader Thune in a little bit. Let me remind you, Angel Tree, we're running out of time. We are down to 8 days, and we can take care of more kids of the 1.5 million children whose mom and or dad are in jail, behind bars. They get a Bible, a present, a note from mom or dad about the present, how much they love them, and most important of all, a connection to Angel Tree. You can call Angel Tree at 888-206-2764. Whether you give a huge gift like my friends Carol and Jan did, or a small gift like many of you have sent $10 or $15 or $20, God sees, I see, we see, and more important, those kids receive on Christmas something from their mothers and fathers. Thank you. Don't forget, I'm in the Relief Factor studio. I talked about it in the first hour. I'll tell you again, I was able to get back out today finally. One long, not going to overdo it on the first day back because the weather's down into the 40s and we can finally get outside and get some exercise in. But you take Relief Factor every day. That's the best way to keep your body's anti-inflammatory system strong. Icarian, curcumin, and resveratrol omega. The 4 natural supplements, the only ones I've taken for more than 20 years. I've been taking it 13 years, beginning in January. I love Relief Factor. I tell everyone I know, take it, try it. Call 1-800, the number 4, and the word relief for the starter pack at $19.95. 1-800, the number 4, and the word relief. Or go to their website. It's less than $1 a day for 3 weeks. ReliefFactor.com, ReliefFactor.com. There's a debate going on in the House about whether or not to hold a symbolic vote in the House of Representatives over extending the Obamacare subsidies. Wholly symbolic vote. They're not going to extend the Obamacare subsidies. They were temporary. They're too expensive. They masked the catastrophe that is Obamacare. Bad policy, bad economics. But 4 Republicans think it's good politics. One of them is Mike Lawler, and I could not be more disappointed. I mean, I really tried to help Mike Lawler out. He's in a tough district, but I think this might break me because you don't throw your party under the bus for showmanship. I mean, you can go to the bat for the SALT deduction. That's for your district. And he did, and he won. And I understood it all the way along. Doesn't help me, but he's trying to keep a seat. He believes in his sort of center-right positions. He's much more liberal than I am. But today, 4 Republicans signed a discharge petition, which isn't a free vote, not voting your conscience. It has absolutely no chance. All it is to embarrass every other Republican except the 4 who signed it. And Mike Lawler is out there doing damage control now. Cut number 1.
Congress has to act. And we have a responsibility to advance legislation forward.
Right, but you know, Congressman, if President Trump endorsed what you're talking about, that would dislodge the House Republican leadership. He's sort of been on the sidelines throughout all this in the last couple of weeks.
Well, with all due respect, we have members who have strong positions on the ACA, on Hyde, et cetera. We have been trying to work through these issues for the last few weeks. I and a number of my colleagues met in a bipartisan way to come up with real reforms, including income limits, elimination of zero premium plans, expansion of HSAs, and PBM reform to actually start to reduce the cost of health care. The challenge is that it doesn't have Hyde language in it, which is why many of my colleagues on the right won't support it. And on the left, if you put that language in, they will revolt. And so you're betwixt and between trying to solve a problem. The White House put out a framework that was rejected by the Speaker and others. And so, we're trying to work through this. My point is we have a time deadline. We can get to 218 in the House. We can get to 60 if everybody recognizes it's going to take bipartisan support. It's going to take compromise. That is what I've been working towards. That's why I'm fighting so hard to get this done.
He's not fighting hard. He's throwing the Republican Party under the bus, and he should not expect any help when he stands up for re-election. He just shouldn't, because this is just theater kid stuff. It's performative. By the way, it is an act. He said it's not an act. It is an act. There's no way to 60 votes in the Senate. They're not running out of time. Those subsidies are not going to get extended. That's been the reality for months. I mean, the Democrats knew it when they put it in. It was a 2-year deal. It was a bad idea. It was done for COVID purposes to save people during COVID. And Mike Lawler is throwing the Republicans under the bus. Don't be surprised when the bus backs up. Cut number 2, he did it again.
Look, we had a government shutdown for 43 days, and Democrats said this was an existential crisis. And so when the government reopened, I sat down in a good faith, bipartisan way with my Democratic colleagues and my Republican colleagues to broker a compromise legislation that would extend the subsidies, but put serious reforms in place. We worked to get that through our House Republican leadership to have them put it on the floor for an up or down vote and let the process work and allow the House to do its business. Ultimately, we could not reach agreement with House Republican leadership about putting those bills up for a vote. We introduced them as discharge.
We could not reach agreement with House Republican leadership to put those bills up for a vote. Admission against interest. Either you're in a party or you're not. I don't mind people negotiating hard. I mean, he negotiated very hard for SALT. Mike Lawler went to the wall for it. But when you say we cannot get it through, they've already done everything for this guy. Everybody has. I like Mike Lawler. I don't even know anyone who doesn't like him. But what's the use of having a Republican in the seat if you're going to embarrass every other Republican in the House when it's a narrow majority? When you start grandstanding, you start losing people like me. And, the knucklehead caucus is on the far right, and they're 3 down at the end of the year. Or by February, there'll be 3 less knuckleheads at 4. 4 less knuckleheads by the end of January. And good. They took out Kevin McCarthy, and it was the dumbest doggone thing I've ever seen. This is as dumb as that. I don't like dumb. I don't think we ought to support dumb. I don't think we ought to support grandstanding, showboating individuals who can't get their way, so they go across and they get the Democrats and they sign a discharge petition that will do nothing, absolutely nothing. It will not advance the ball an inch towards comprehensive repair of the Obamacare fiasco. Not an inch. It goes backwards. So you throw people under the bus, expect the bus to back up over you, because that's what happens in politics. Very few things. Now, I posted the Disraeli quote. That is my favorite Disraeli quote. And I got a lot of favorite quotes. Like, a majority is better than the best repartee. That's one of my favorite ones. But it yields to, and I want to get it right. First book Richard Nixon gave me to read. Went to work for him in 1978. Said, go in to the library. There's a library at the old Western White House. Said, go into the library and bring me William Blake's Disraeli. And he knew that it was so annotated. It's in the Nixon library now. And so I read William Blake's Disraeli. It's a magnificent biography. It's why I want Andrew Roberts to write it. Here's what Disraeli said. It is not becoming in any minister to decry party who has risen by party. We should always remember that if we were not partisans, we should not be ministers. Let me make that easier for the Steelers fans to understand. We should not screw the Republican Party if we expect the Republican Party to help us next year. So that's different from negotiating hard for your liberal New York Republican position. That's fine. Go to the mat for your district. You've got leverage. Get it. You're not getting anything here. Nothing. You're embarrassing half of your Congress. They're going to be used in every attack ad. Everything. I can't even begin to tell you what the Democrats will do with this vote. So to those 4 Republicans who signed the discharge petition, withdraw your signature. You're about to jump off the cliff with a bungee line that's 5 feet too long. Now, the Steelers fans are never going to get that, are they? Dwayne, you think the Steelers fans aren't going to understand that? A bungee cord that's 5 feet too long? You think they can get that? Think Carl gets that? Carl's in Texas.
Oh, Carl will get that, but he's
Carl's
he's
in
not
Texas.
a typical Steelers fan.
No, but he's not. He's not. But he's in Texas, so I think he's gone backwards. But what Mike Lawler is doing is jumping off a cliff with a bungee cord at his ankle that is 5 feet too long. So don't be surprised. Don't be surprised. It's actually beginning to look like the Bad Santa movie in the House of Representatives. It requires 218 signatures on a discharge petition to get a piece of legislation onto the House floor. Democrats have rounded up 4 Republicans to get a 3-year, no questions asked extension of the Obamacare subsidies. Brian Fitzpatrick of Pennsylvania, Rob Bresnahan of Pennsylvania, Ryan McKenzie of Pennsylvania, and our old friend, maybe not any longer, Mike Lawler of New York. And so now the discharge petition has enough. I'm joined by Sarah Bedford, Washington Examiner, political investigative reporter. Merry Christmas, Sarah. How are you?
Merry Christmas. Thanks for having me.
Always good to see you. Can they take their name off that discharge petition?
Not once the discharge petition has reached 218 signatures. If they had a change of heart before the discharge petition had gathered enough signatures, then they could have done so, but it's frozen. It's locked in once they hit the 218 number. And so at this point, no, none of those 4 Republicans, it doesn't look like they would be able to remove their signatures.
What if they quit? Because it's just quicker. They can get their office moved out sooner because they're all going to lose. I mean, I'm as partisan as they come, but when you screw your party this way, this is like the guys who tossed out McCarthy, only on the other end of the caucus.
Well, there's a perennial complaint, especially among conservatives, right, that moderates do things that depress the base overall for everyone in order to save seats that they may not even be able to hang on to either way. So you might as well fight for conservative principles. The way that the Republican Party has handled this moment with the expiration of the ACA subsidies is really baffling to a lot of conservatives because they've had many, many years to come up with ideas to reform a healthcare program that they've been criticizing for more than a decade now. And yet they're scrambling at this last moment. And you have moderates like Fitzpatrick saying that a clean extension of the subsidies is better than no extension, which is not a very traditionally conservative position. And yeah, it's really angering to a lot of other Republicans.
Yeah, there is not a prayer that it will ever get through the Senate. And I think these four were, I gave, and so did a lot of people, cover for them when they wanted a SALT cap increase, because I understand the districts in the Northeast and all that, but then to turn around and vote for a dead-on-arrival bill, so all they want, it's just really showmanship, right? If there's a good case to be made for this, you can tell it to me. I am unaware of it.
No, I mean, there are more viable proposals in the House that have things like income caps or expanding HSAs and things that would get other Republicans to get on board and that wouldn't be seen as a sort of betrayal of principles. And this really does sort of look like a middle finger to leadership, because Speaker Johnson had said he wasn't going to bring any of these compromises to the floor. Fitzpatrick said, I really tried to get some of my bipartisan or, more centrist compromises to the floor. And when that didn't happen, then I had to kind of just be like, screw you, I'll go side with the Democrats. And, Johnson was sort of put in an impossible position here, right? Because Trump and J.D. Vance, they didn't run on cutting subsidies for people, right? But at the same time, it is not anywhere in the conservative playbook to allow a COVID era subsidy like this to continue to prop up a broken healthcare system. And so leadership, the White House was in a really awful position here, but they really did get undermined by these moderate members.
I think it is the mirror of Matt Gaetz and his knucklehead caucus, what they did when they threw Kevin McCarthy out, which is they wanted some attention, the attention economy. They threw a fit. They threw out the most effective fundraiser the Republican Party has ever had, and they got nothing out. Mike Johnson's a wonderful speaker. He's a good speaker. But Lawler and crew, they're not going to get anything out of this. If there was any way that they would get anything out of this, I would say, okay, but it's not good politics. It's terrible politics. They'll probably get a primary challenge. Will they?
Well, the four of them are probably concerned about staying in Congress, right? And that's the only point of difference that I would say with Matt Gaetz. He was running in a very heavily Republican district. He never had to fear for his reelection prospects, whereas these four are probably quite nervous about what's going to happen in November and confident that it would be really difficult for anyone to primary them from the right in those really competitive districts that they may end up losing no matter what they do. But that was likely the calculation here, is that they fear leadership's not looking out for their interests heading into a tough race.
Did they think that the Republican Party had no choice but to support them? Because they're wrong.
Well, I think that they probably don't fear a primary challenge from the right. That would be extremely difficult in a district like Lawler's, for example, in New York, which is very competitive.
I got maybe that's the case, but come November of 26, and the NRCC has to spend money, and people want airtime, and they're begging for help. Those four don't get any. Sarah, I'll talk to you one more time before Christmas. Stay well. No one else is. Sarah Bedford, thank you, my friend. Today I spoke with Majority Leader John Thune for a good half hour, and we talked about everything, including a couple of areas that we disagree or maybe perhaps will reach agreement on. Let's get back to that final part of my interview with Senate Majority Leader Thune. Well, let me go to our four we might wrestle about these. Number one, I think Lincoln Kienholz ought to stay at the Buckeye land and not go into the portal. What do you think?
It's a tough call. I think they're taking good care of him there, but he's got a couple years eligibility left, and he's a great talent, and there are a lot of teams that could use him, and so it'll be a hard call for him. But Sayen's had a terrific year, and obviously he's in his first year, so he's going to be there for a while. I keep hearing interest from other Big Ten teams. I hear some, I was hear Notre Dame rumors and other places, but. He's a great talent, Hugh, and I hope that whatever he decides to do, he's going to be a great asset to any team that he's on, and he is to the Buckeyes right now. even though he's not on the field all the time. He's making a big difference there.
Season's not over yet, and we're one play away from. Well, we've done that before. What that really is just my way to lead to the NIL statute that's kicking around up there. Will that get done next year, or anything having to do with college sports, because it's a mess and it's getting worse as we see in Michigan and other places?
I agree totally, and I think we need to move, because a lot of these conferences that span multiple states, you take a conference like the Big Ten or the SEC, which spans 11 states, and every state in the conference now is passing their own laws to give their schools a competitive advantage over the other schools in the conference. And so there needs to be a sort of a federal framework, if you will, and I think we're going to need some rules around it, some transparency around it, a uniform standard contract that athletes and parents and schools and agents and everybody knows what the deal is. I think there's an interest in doing some caps, kind of like what they do with the NFL, on how much a team can spend on NIL, et cetera. Some good ideas kicking around. The challenge we have, especially in the Senate, is the Democrats in the Senate, as you would expect, all are interested in unionizing the athletes. They want to create an employee relationship between the schools and the student athletes. And we believe, and I think you listen to any school, in particular look at a state like South Dakota, where we've got mid-major Division I and Division II schools, the Olympic sports and Title IX sports are the ones that will pay the price if we move to that kind of a unionization system. So we've got to get some Dems who are willing to work with us on reforms that don't involve unionizing the athletes.
I hope the college presidents come with you. Now, my penultimate issue. There are 40 vacancies at the district court level. I know senators love those blue slips, but if we keep that rule or don't at least reform it to you get a compromise for a year, but in the second year we're going to do jam downs. California and New York, there will never be another trial court judge who's even center right, much less conservative. Is there any way to fix that system? I know senators love it, but it's just bad for the country.
Yeah, it is. That's a challenging one, Hugh, because honestly, I would say that issue, senators are probably there's more of an intense feeling about preserving the blue slip maybe even than there is the filibuster, just because for the reasons you mentioned. If you represent, for example, like state of Missouri, there were 4 judges that were up under Biden that our members used blue slips to block in Biden's last year, and as soon as Trump came in, he filled them with his nominees. And so it is blue state, red state. The argument on district judges, as you know, has always been that they're specific to a state, and state senators ought to have some input into the decision-making process about who those positions are. Mike Rounds and I actually, under Biden, were able to get a judge in that we had been working, trying to get. We haven't had if you can believe this, in South Dakota, we hadn't had a Republican-appointed judge in our state going back to Reagan. And so there were 2 vacancies. They wanted one Dem. We gave them a Dem. We got a Republican person into that position in South Dakota. So there are examples of how that process, I think, works to our advantage, and that's what most senators hang on to when it comes to a discussion about the blue slip. But I understand.
And I hope you get together with Democrats, because it means big states like California and New York, in which there's a lot of litigation, will never get normal judges. And I don't even conservatives, just normal, civil, talented guys and gals who know how to run a courtroom, and it's a nightmare out there. Let me finish with this, Senator, because I know you got to go. The affordability crisis is real. My kids' generations can't buy houses. And I know one of the reasons is people of my generation are stuck in houses because of capital gains until one of the spouses dies. They literally, if you've had a house for 30 years in one of the coastal states, you can't sell it or you get smacked with a tax bill you couldn't believe. Can you work on waiving or reforming? Originally, the exclusion of $250,000 or $500,000 made sense in order to loosen up the housing stock. It doesn't work anymore. Do you think that can get fixed in a reconciliation?
I think I think there are some things we could do in a reconciliation bill around housing, and it is a big problem. You're right, and I think one of the things, actually, there's a housing bill moving through both the House and the Senate right now. Believe it or not, that's bipartisan, and there are some things next year that I think other issues like permitting reform, for example,
the Speed Act, yeah.
Yeah, I think those are things that could be done on a bipartisan basis, but for sure, this issue of housing in this country and just the obstacles that are in the way of young people actually getting into home ownership, which you've always thought to be the American dream, it's something we've got to address. And so, a lot of conversation around that. There's a bill, housing bill. It's Senate Banking Committee, I think, has already reported out, perhaps unanimously. House is working on something similar. So we're looking for solutions there, but affordability is a big issue. And people in this country, we want to make sure that the American dream is available to all Americans, and that young people today, as they are looking at their future, have opportunities to participate in that dream in a way that's affordable.
Thank you I think waiving capital gains for people who are over 70 or 75 makes all the sense in the world. Senator, I've taken up enough of your time. I just want to say thank you. Last quick question. Are you glad you won the job after a year?
Well, it's a day-to-day proposition, Hugh. I'm like, can I have a recount? Because it feels like, but anyway, we're grinding away at it, and hopefully making a difference. So thank you.
Leader, thank you. We'll talk to you in 2026. Merry Christmas.
All right, same to you. Thank you.
He has been a fabulous leader. Tough act to follow, Mitch McConnell. John Thune's doing a great job doing it. You should follow him on X at Leader Thune. The transcript of that is over at HughHewitt.com. Dwayne typed that up earlier today, and all of it's at my YouTube channel. When you go there, would you like and subscribe? Please, over at Hugh Hewitt, YouTube. That's my Christmas present. Get to 100,000 subscribers. Doesn't cost anything. Just a like and subscribe, a couple of clicks over at YouTube on the Hugh Hewitt accounts. You don't get Leader Thune and Governor Youngkin on many programs, but you're at the best program on the radio, and I am here to tell you, you need the best grill for Christmas. BestHotGrill.com, one of our great sponsors, our friends Rhett and Irene. They make them in America, the Solaire infrared grills. They're the best grill. Give it to your dad or your grandfather if you really want to treat them this Christmas. Or you just got great clients. Take a look. They got 5 different size Solaire infrared grills. All you have to do is visit their website, do some shopping. If you buy the big one, you can try it before you buy it. You can buy it for yourself, by the way. Maybe you got a bonus for Christmas. Maybe you think you want to splurge because you love the barbecue. You barbecue all winter as well as spring, fall, and especially in the summer. Best Hot Grill, the Solaire infrared grill. From 0 to 3,000 degrees in a minute. Or is it from 0 to 1,000 degrees in 3? I don't know. It gets really hot really fast and makes the best beef in the world. And you will love it. BestHotGrill.com. BestHotGrill.com. And believe me, if you give that gift to a client, they will remember you forever. The hibachi or the next size up. They'll say, gosh, Hewitt did me well. Whoever gave me this did me well. BestHotGrill.com. Now a warning. My emails continue to pile up with fraudsters. Why? Because they know it's that time of the year. They know you're getting solicitations to give to charity. They know the charities that you give to if they've hacked your computer. And they might say, hey, hit this button for a year-end contribution. That won't happen if you have WebRoot. WebRoot gives you an absolute barrier. It's not absolute. It's just really, really good, like 99% good. Stop the fraudsters before they get in. Have identity fraud protection. You can keep malware off your computer completely. You can get advanced warning of deep web buying and selling of your identity. All you have to do is go to webroot.com/Hewitt, and right now you're getting 60% off. For less than $75 at webroot.com, you get all-in-one protection. And you can either get your identity and 5 devices covered, or you can have 10 people on one plan and up to 10 devices. So I'm here to tell you, protect yourself and your family from cybercrime. Webroot.com/Hewitt for the new year. New year, new devices, new you. Webroot.com. And then finally, our friends at Conservatives for Lower Health Care Costs. They've got their website up and running because it's a battle. It's ongoing right now. And I think some Republicans in the House are going the wrong way, but it won't get through the Senate. They're going to come back in the new year and work on affordable care. The Obamacare is a disaster. And to prevent Big Pharma from looting the next effort, join Conservatives for Lower Health Care Costs right now. You do that by going to pharmawindfall.com. Pharmawindfall.com. Donald Trump has been putting affordability and people who consume drugs first. He's not putting Big Pharma first. He put them on notice. And boy, it's coming through. But no more exorbitant and outrageous price hikes. No more manipulation of patents. Big Pharma has to compete like everyone else. So go to pharmawindfall.com and join the fight for lower drug prices within our free market economy. That's pharmawindfall.com, pharmawindfall.com.